Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Well, good morning, everybody. We are coming to you earlier than usual today because we're in session. And joining us today is a legislator who's been a big champion of small government. Representative Brett Guyman is the chair of the House Natural Resources and Environment Committee. We'll be talking to him today about the efforts of his committee to return energy and carbon capture sequestration decision-making back to local control. Before we get into that conversation, let me read the scripture of the day. It's Galatians chapter 1, verses 23 and 24. And much of this chapter is the Apostle Paul recounting to the Galatian church what happened to him after he encountered Jesus on the road to Damascus. Excuse me. He says, "The only thing they heard about me was this: our former enemy who once brutally persecuted us is now preaching the good news of the faith that he was once obsessed with destroying. Because of the transformation that took place in my life, they praised God even more." And as I was reading that this morning, it just made me smile because it was such an encouragement, right? It's an encouragement for us to pray for our enemies. It's an encouragement that things can transform in our lives overnight. I was encouraged to pray for my enemies, people who are enemies of the gospel of Jesus and his kingdom, because all it takes is one encounter with the Lord to radically turn someone's life around and make them an incredible asset to everything they once worked to destroy. And the scripture is also challenging me not to judge where people are, because we're all a work in progress. And the very people that I might judge and count as my enemy today may be the one that the Lord will use powerfully to advance his kingdom.
You know, Danielle, as you were praying, it popped into my head the last time Representative Guyman was on our show. He talked about his method of prayer, which oftentimes occurs on elevators, headed up to different places in the Capitol. And I know that he's got a deep, and I know that he's got a deep faith in God, and it certainly is doing an awful lot of good to help people, particularly in the areas of energy in Louisiana. Chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee and Environment, Representative Guyman, thank you for taking a few minutes this morning to be with us on the State of Freedom, sir. We know you got your hands full right about now.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. And yes, we do have our hands full, no doubt about it, on a number of issues, not just in our committee, but this whole session is full of very important issues and actually quite controversial issues. So
yeah, they are controversial.
This is probably the most difficult session I've stepped into, and I'm starting my 17th year.
Wow.
So,
yeah. And people are engaged,
yes.
Brett. You know, the public is engaged, particularly on the issue of energy and the environment. And I wanted to ask you, before we get into the carbon capture sequestration issues, I wanted to ask you about HB 615, which looks like a good bill dealing with the development of solar generation. It's a great bill, and it's not just coincidental that it's your bill.
I know, Chris, you got to be a little more enthusiastic about
it. It's a very good bill, and one of the things that jumped out at me about it, Brett, was the fact that it vests significant authority in local municipalities to regulate and determine the parameters of solar generation. And I think that is something, as a conservative constitutionalist, I think anytime we can vest control in local authorities to make self-determining decisions for themselves is a good thing. But tell us generally about the solar bill and what you hope to accomplish if it gets through and signed.
Sure. The solar issue kind of jumped out at us unexpectedly. We were going to study solar and wind in this session, and ironically, if not ironically, but actually, what ended up happening was a project in my area was taking off and was very controversial. So, I trial by fire, I learned what the issues are about a solar project. People refer to them as a solar farm, and all the things that come with that, because it takes up a lot of real estate. If it's located by your home, you lose potential value of your home and your property and the right for you to enjoy your property. We all believe in property rights, and we don't want to take away the right of someone to do a solar project on their property. But we also want to respect the property of the people who live next door and the community around it. So,
Yeah.
very, very difficult to walk that line between private property rights and restrictions, and that's what we're trying to do in this bill. To your point, we have a waiver where the local governments can view a project differently than the Department of Energy and Natural Resources may, and they can submit that waiver to the legislature to be adopted. Ironically, the solar project people don't like that option. I'm not sure why, but we'll work through that in the legislative process. But basically, what we're trying to do is make sure that these projects are located in the best place possible, and they have the least amount of negative impact on the people around them, on the wildlife habitat, and on the communities, because they're massive and they're ugly, and they're not being well maintained by these developers. These folks are not from here; they're from other states, other countries, perhaps, and they come in and they drop these big, huge projects, and then they walk away. And so we just have a lot of issues that we're trying to clean up and make sure that as these projects get done in our state, that they're done in the best possible way.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much, Brett, because I think you think about these projects and people get excited when there are projects coming to Louisiana because it feels like we've been forgotten for so long, but it doesn't negate the fact that we should be choosy about what we take on. Are a lot of these projects like the project in your district, for instance, is it funded? I mean, what's the funding mechanism for that? Where are those companies getting the money? Because I don't see solar as being very sustainable in terms of the financial aspect.
Well, yes, you're on to something there. I think all of these green energy projects are subsidized, and without those subsidies, I don't think that these projects would be moving forward. But
Yeah.
regardless, we have to manage them if they're coming, and that's the task assigned to the committee that I chair, is that we have to manage energy and the energy projects, and so we're trying to navigate and manage those the best we can, despite the fact that without subsidies they probably wouldn't be here. But
Yeah.
if they are coming, and there are some already here. You've seen them if you've driven around our state. You've seen them, but there's a bunch of them in the pipeline to come. And gosh, we just want to make sure we do a little better job than what we've done with the ones that are already here, because they're not well done.
They're not well
Yeah.
done, and they also destroy farmland,
Absolutely.
and you know, that's something that would take a lot of work to get back. But
Yes.
like you
No,
said, these companies come in and they drop them off and they are on to the next place. It's
that's
not
right.
about maintenance. It's not about making sure that the local population is happy with what they leave behind.
No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. The farmland and the wildlife habitat are two very big issues that need to be addressed. Wildlife, perhaps a little easier to address, because wildlife belongs to all of us. And even though they're on your private property, the animals themselves, the wildlife, do not belong to you. And so we have to manage wildlife for the state to enjoy, for our state and our people to enjoy. Farmland, a little bit harder to deal with, because that's someone's property. And if they choose to take it out of farmland, who are we to tell them they can't? And
Yeah.
so we're trying to navigate that. But we also don't want these developers coming in and taking up all the farmland. And,
Yeah.
they're displacing our sugarcane farmers and other tenant farmers, because most farmers are tenant farmers. It's unlikely or unusual when they own the property and farm it. It's either they're the landowner or they're the farmer. They're not both. And so
Yeah.
it's that balance of allowing the landowner to do what they want to with their property. They make more money putting solar on it than they do rice and soybean and sugar cane. So we understand that, but we also want to be careful that we don't overdo that. And look, I'll tell you what, it's a tough issue. It's a tough issue.
It is a tough
You have to get
issue,
right.
Brett. Yeah, it's definitely a tough issue, and one of the biggest concerns that people have, whether you're talking about carbon capture sequestration or solar energy, is the private property rights, as you've touched on. And there are people who are sitting here thinking, why should an individual ever have to give up their land
Yeah.
for an experimental, the development of an experimental science, when this country was founded on core rights of private property, and there really should not be any circumstance in which a private corporation should be able to expropriate even 1 inch of a person's property against their will, in order to develop something that they don't want on their land. So, where, as far as the solar generation and facilities, Brett, where does eminent domain come to play there? Is as current law, is it the same rule in place with respect to solar development as it is with CCS regarding
Yeah,
eminent domain?
Yeah, there's no eminent domain in solar because it's no one's because unlike carbon capture and oil and natural gas and the different things that we produce here in our industry, that those are all they can use eminent domain to some degree in those projects, but solar is not regulated at the state level currently. So it's a local landowner doing a contract with a solar developer. And that's where the problems come in with, if you drive by some of these sites and they're just hideous and they're not maintained because there is no regulation. They've
Yeah.
gone under contract with a developer with no restrictions, no setbacks, no buffer zones, no maintenance plan, no decommissioning. None of that is in place. Now, some parishes do have it, but many have zero restrictions on solar. It's just if you can do the deal, you do the deal. And the only thing that changes for the parish is that they get more tax revenue because the tax of that property now moves from ag to industrial, so that they get a little more money. And so they're excited. They don't care about the rest of it. And so eminent domain is not come into play in
Good.
solar. It absolutely comes into play under carbon capture, which is probably one of the cornerstones and biggest issues within that subject matter, in my opinion, is whether you like it, whether you love it, whether you hate it, that they should not be able to take your property.
Yeah. And before we turn to carbon capture, I just wanted to mention, I was really excited when I saw this solar bill and I said, you know what, we need something just like this. And we mentioned it to you for the wind farms that they're putting off the coast. And so maybe, I know you can only tackle so much in a given session. You got your hands full, but when you bring that, maybe it would be good to bring in the charter fishermen as, as the arbiters of that space. In
Not
a
only
similar way.
wind, not to interrupt you, but not only wind offshore, it's wind inland that's coming to our
Is
state.
it?
And so what we have heard is that because we don't have a lot of wind in Louisiana like you do in Kansas and Oklahoma, where you see all the wind turbines, they're going to raise them. They're going to put them at 750 feet in the air instead of 300
Oh my
feet.
gosh.
Yeah, so a whole nother set of problems coming down the road on wind. How do we regulate that? How far does it need to be away from people's homes? All those same issues that you have with solar are there for wind. You see most states that are doing wind and solar, their legislative packages tackle both of them at the same time.
Okay.
We didn't do that, quite honestly, because we spent the whole year studying solar and we really haven't put the work in to study the wind yet. It's something I think we'll do next year. And perhaps we'll have regulations on that, or maybe we'll just ask the Department of Energy and Natural Resources to promulgate rules on it. But what we don't want to happen inland is to have these things popping up with no restrictions and no regulations, because they can be devastating to a community.
Well, Brett, I can't even think of anything more retarded than putting windmills inland in a place that's hurricane prone. Literally, I mean, if you look, if you have lived in South Louisiana and seen every single power line down, the last thing you want is a 700-foot tall, massive piece of steel coming down on homes and businesses. That is absolutely insane.
Well, save this conversation for next year.
All right.
We're
All
not
right.
addressing wind right now. We
I'll
can't.
rein it
Yeah.
in. I'll rein it in. Okay, well, let's switch over to carbon capture then. There will be a lot of bills coming to your committee this year several of them are aiming to return local control back to or control back to the localities when it comes to this, kind of getting to Chris's point about eminent domain as well.
Yeah, I think we have over 20 bills filed on the subject matter, and I believe 15 to 18 of them actually come through our committee. Some of them go through local and municipal because they're specifically about a single parish, and the local option to opt in or opt out. The statewide one that Representative Owen has filed does come to our committee. Next Tuesday on the 29th, we anticipate we'll start at 9 a.m. and we anticipate working deep into the night, like perhaps midnight, and to tackle somewhere in the range of 12 to 14 of those bills, and then the other ones left over will be the following week. But it's a big hill to climb. A lot of controversial issues. Going to take a lot of debate, a lot of passionate debate. The grassroots community is on fire about this. I mean, they are just mad as heck. And I know they're going to be storming the Capitol that day, and rightly so. They should. And I've encouraged them to come. That's your building. Come and let your voices be heard. I mean, behave and be respectful, but come and let your voices be heard. And it's going to be a challenging day for all of us. So if you guys think about it next week, if you're not at the meeting, say a prayer for our committee and our members, because it's going to be a tough day.
Yeah. Brett, what is the issue? The Republican Natural Resources Committee obviously is Republican dominated. Most of the people who are on the committee ran on principles of conservatism and which entails and includes local authority. People not only have authority over their own individual lives, but local government should have authority over their own affairs. So what is the controversy in your view about getting a bill that simply would vest control over carbon capture sequestration and whether those pipelines can go into people's parishes or on the property, letting local government authorities make that decision for themselves? Why is that controversial?
Well, I think there's several reasons why. One, we balance, as Republicans, I think we only have 2 Democrats on our whole committee. So it's very Republican dominated. Balancing industry with people's rights, I guess, is the word you use, their property rights, trying to balance that. Industry will come and say that, if you had local option on fracking in North Louisiana, we would have never had the Haynesville Shale. They'll say we would never have the oil and gas industry. We would never have the LNG industry, because locals oftentimes are fearful of these projects and don't want them, but they don't fully understand them. That'll be the argument from the industry side. The people will argue that let us make that decision on our own. And if we don't want carbon capture in our parish, we'll take the consequences of that not coming here. We're willing to forego the revenue and the economic development that you say comes with it, but we want to be able to make that decision. And I think it's a good argument, and we'll see if what the vote shakes out to be. I think it's a very good argument. I think it's a 50-50 shot that bill can go either way. Eminent domain is the same thing. You got the same argument about eminent domain. It's the debate over whether my right to not have something come through my yard is stronger than the right of industry to come into a parish and do these projects, because they'll argue that without eminent domain they can't do the project, which I call baloney on. Actually, I have a bill on eminent domain. I'm very passionate about that issue. I don't even like it for utilities, yet alone for a carbon sequestration project. If I, as a landowner, want a pipeline through my yard, that's my decision. Yes, that's fine. I make that decision. But if I don't, go around me. That's my answer to them. Go around me. It's a pipeline. Go around me.
And people know. Go ahead, Danielle. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I think it's a complete straw man argument by industry, because what you get for oil and gas. You actually get a real product at the end of that that's revenue generating.
Yeah.
No one gets a product from capturing carbon that's naturally occurring in the atmosphere and burying it underground.
But Danielle, I think that is the point, is how do you justify using eminent domain on something that's not for the public good, which is the definition of being able to use eminent domain, is it has to be a necessity and or a public good. And so to me, it doesn't fit either of those, but it definitely doesn't fit necessity on a pipeline, because you argue that it's not necessary for you to come through my yard. You can go around me. You know, where underground in the pore space where they're storing, there's a little different argument, because they can't tell that space where to go. Like, you know, that is the cavity that they're going to put the CO2 in. That's a little different argument than a pipeline, which you order 490s and you turn and you go around my yard. I mean, it's that look, it may not be as feasible or as economical to not go straight through my yard, but you can go around my yard. So it's not necessary for you to come through my yard, or you can send it to another place. You can go a different direction altogether. And so that's the argument I'll try to make next Tuesday, and hopefully I'm successful, but we'll see. Because man, their industry is not in support of, I don't think they're in support of any of these bills coming next Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, they I hope they're in for a rude awakening. We had the railroad commissioner from Texas, Wayne Christian, on,
Heard of him,
and he's what a great guy, but he was just talking about the fact that this is a scam. And there's been a big hard push from the federal government and inside of our state to develop carbon capture pipelines and facilities in Louisiana. I think Wayne Christian was very clear. President Trump has been very clear in his perspective that CCS is a total scam. So, you know, in my view, federal funding should be drying up on this. Is there a plan for the state to pick up subsidizing something that so many people?
No.
So why should we even? So I feel like I'm hoping anyway, Brett, that your committee is positioning the state for a nice little off ramp, so we can look at CCS in the rear view mirror and not have any extra pain come to taxpayers.
I would have to tell you, what I see is we are geared up to take. I mean, there's projects coming all over with CCS, so I don't see us slowing down. I see us speeding up.
Really?
But to your point, if the federal government and the Trump administration stop the 45Q tax credits, the $85 a metric ton of disposal, these projects will end immediately. But we don't know if they're going to. We don't know, and we can speculate, but we don't know. Now, I don't think he being the president and his administration are fans of wind. He's been pretty clear about that, and I don't think he's a fan of solar. But we haven't heard anything specifically about stopping CCS from that administration yet.
Yeah. Okay. Although Lee Zeldin, Brett, is in the process, I believe, of revisiting the basic premise of carbon capture sequestration, which is whether carbon dioxide is actually a net harm to the environment.
Nobody believes that.
And it's not. And so it's just extraordinary that this type of massive effort of taxpayer money would be invested in an idea in order to reduce the emissions of something that nature needs, that we need, that the habitat needs, carbon dioxide. The whole thing, Brett, is based upon a lie. And that's the problem that people have. And just adding insult to injury is the eminent domain, and then forcing it on local jurisdictions. And I know that you're very, very sensitive to those issues.
Yeah. So Chris, you make good points. And I don't know if there's anybody in industry that believes that carbon capture needs to be done. Again, the challenge for us is we all, and I tell my colleagues sometimes you have to take the issue of, quote, the Green New Deal, and you have to set it off to the side. And, because really, I don't think anyone believes that this is anything that we should be doing, like for the climate. Okay, for the climate. But if we're doing it, the question becomes, how do we do it, and how do we manage it, and how do we navigate it? And that's a very, very difficult line for us to walk on our committee, because oftentimes it looks like we are proponents when we are actually trying to manage what's coming, even though we don't think what's coming ought to be here. It's kind of it's a
Yeah.
weird spot for us to be in, and we're going to do the best we can to get some common sense, reasonable bills out of the committee that will, to your point, Chris, help people in terms of eminent domain, not to have to give their property up. If they want to, by all means, you have a right to do that. I think you would agree with me on that. That if a homeowner or landowner wants to allow an easement for a pipeline, then they can do that, but they shouldn't be forced to do it. And that is where we draw the line. And it's the same argument back on solar. It's private property rights of the person to do the project, but not to take away the right of the neighbor to enjoy their property. It's a very simple argument. And so we have to try to manage both of those the best we can, because honestly, we would probably all agree an 8,000 acre solar farm makes no sense. It's not efficient. It doesn't generate electricity unless the sun shines. I mean, it's got a lot of negatives. I don't think solar is a bad thing. Put it on your house, put it on your commercial property, whatever. I put it on your RV. Like, I think that's really great. You're producing something, it's making something. But utility scale solar is just kind of weird. It really is. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But again, if we're doing it, we just want to try to help manage it the best we can. And I'm not trying to talk around the issue. I'm just saying we're challenged with having to manage projects that we fundamentally don't think we ought to be doing, but we still have to manage them.
Yeah. We did a survey. I did an informal survey the other day, Brett, about whether or not carbon capture sequestration should be made illegal in Louisiana altogether. And the responses were overwhelmingly, yes, we don't want it. But based on what you're saying, Danny McCormick's bill, despite the fact that I'm sure it is extraordinarily popular, I know it is among ordinary citizens across the state, just to declare CCS illegal in Louisiana. What are your thoughts on his legislation?
Well, I think what Representative McCormick has wanted or wants to do on that particular bill is move it to the week after. We're going to have that first week with 12 to 14 bills. I think he's going to move that bill to the following week to see how committee goes that first day. I think, if you're asking my opinion on whether it passes or fails, I think it depends a lot on how that first day goes. If we can't pass anything in the first day, then I would say that bill has very little chance of passing, because it's the farthest extreme position on the subject matter that we have in the whole 20 bill package. It's the one that's the furthest out, as far as hardcore, hey, let's just stop all the nonsense. Let's just don't do it.
Yeah.
The problem with, and again, I'm not defending CCS, and it's going to sound like I am, but I'm not. But the problem is, if you've been watching all of the big announcements of these projects coming to Louisiana, the steel mill, the ammonia plant, the Meta, the data center up in North Louisiana, there's another one out there. I can't think of what it is right now. They're all saying they're coming because we are doing CCS. If you look at Oklahoma, they are very conservative like we are, and they are just passed pro CCS legislation out of the House, I believe, or maybe the Senate. I've been kind of following what they're doing as well. It just seems like we're handcuffed. Like, it's like, if you want all these projects and you have to do this, bury this carbon in the ground. And again, it's weird and it doesn't make sense, but I don't know. I don't know where we're going to end up on this. And I think, short of Trump saying this is stupid and we're not going to do it, I think we're probably going to do it,
Wow.
whether we personally like it or not. And I think the best we can try to do is to manage that, make sure that people don't have to do it if they don't want it, don't have to give up their property if they don't want to. If we can get some of those wins, those would be big wins for us this session. And that's kind of
I think the eminent domain and the local control. I was telling Danielle pre-show, and she and I have had this discussion before, and understand fully your position that if it looks as though something is inevitable to some degree, what do? You do everything that you can to contain it, everything you can to properly respect the rights of citizens in the face of it, which it sounds to me like that is exactly what you are, what you're trying to do. But there's no doubt eminent domain and local authority, second to outlawing it altogether.
Yeah.
Those are the two big issues that are absolutely just on people's minds.
There's no question. And if we can get a win on either of those or both of those, then we get, that's a win. That's a win.
Yeah.
We have to take that as a win. You have stranded minerals, you have safety, you have setbacks from schools and houses. There's a whole lot of issues around this subject, but those are the two that are just big time on top of everybody's sheet of, okay, industry, if you're coming here and you want to be a good neighbor, then we want you to respect people's property rights. And I think that's a fair thing to ask them.
It
Yeah.
is. And I would just,
they don't think it's fair, but I think
Of
well,
course not.
they're used to having the upper hand in every which way. But I just wanted to take an opportunity as well to encourage our listeners to show up at the Capitol on Monday morning, if that's when these bills are going to be heard. Is that right? Is the 29th the Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday. Okay. Next Tuesday, if carbon capture sequestration is something that you are passionate about, by all means, show up. House Natural Resources and Environment Committee next Tuesday at 9 a.m., 9:30.
9 a.m. sharp. And
might want to get there early if you want a seat.
Yep. It's going to be standing room only. We're trying to move to a bigger room. We haven't been granted that yet. If we don't get to move to the bigger room, it's going to be really standing room only. But even with the bigger committee room, I think we'll still have standing room only.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that. I'd be surprised if we don't. Long day.
Brett has the second set of bills. I know you've got the 12 to the 14 on Tuesday, the 29th. Is there a date for the second group of bills yet?
I can only tell you right now it would be the following Wednesday or Thursday. We haven't decided which day to do carbon yet. It's going to depend a lot on what day we anticipate coming to the House floor. What time we anticipate coming to the House floor, because we want to have the longer span of committee space if we can get it. So we're kind of waiting to see what the schedule looks like to determine whether we'll do that on Wednesday or Thursday of the following week.
Okay.
And it should be about four to five maybe bills left over. Some of the authors, like I said, Danny, I think wants to move his make it illegal bill to the following week, just to kind of monitor the first week, which I think it's probably a really good move. Give him a little more.
I think so too.
To do something with it. So
Yeah.
we'll have some good spirited debate even on the second week, but mainly the 29th is when we're teeing it up.
Okay.
And I do want to make one point before you go, Brett, because there was some banter on social media about why all of these bills are being set on one day. And I want to clarify for our listeners and for your benefit, based on a conversation that you and I had, that the reason you did this was in order to provide as little inconvenience to the public as possible, so that they're not coming back and forth to the Capitol, often traveling from across multiple parishes across the state, for 10 or 11 days, with all these bills being heard in a patch group, in a sort of piecemeal manner. You want to give everybody an opportunity to be there on one day or 2 days, as it looks like, and you're willing to work again until midnight on an issue this important. And the reason why you did it this way was in order to not inconvenience the public too much. So that's the reason.
So Chris, yes, 100%, but it's even deeper than that. We have a certain amount of time, because it's a short session. You want all your House bills in the Senate by somewhere around the halfway mark, which is the first week of May. We originally had 4 meeting dates. We also have solar, as you talked about earlier. We have legacy lawsuits. We have a whole lot of issues coming to our committee in a limited amount of time. And so we met with the speaker and all of the authors at one time, and we talked about, do you all want to, as a group, do them all in one day and stay here all night if we have to? Everybody said yes. There was never an agenda, as social media implied. There was no strategy behind it, other than we wanted to make it as easy as possible, as you said, for everybody to be here and not have to come back multiple times. And the fact that we're trying to fit it all in a window of time. Now, the speaker has awarded us another meeting date on week 4, which we did not know about when we originally made that decision. Okay, we did not know that. And anything that falls over, we will hear on that particular day, either the Wednesday or Thursday, as we said, and we'll still be short of that halfway mark. So it's still going to all work out. But that is exactly, the committee members and the authors all said, we'll stay here all night if we have to get this done, because it's that important. It's not convenient for anyone, including the people traveling. They're probably going to have to stay over and spend the night. I get it. But otherwise, you may be coming. If we had 3-hour or 4-hour committee meetings, we'd have to have 5 of them. So you'd be coming over multiple times. And who can do that? People have jobs and family, commitments, and it's just hard to do that. So we made the choice to run them. And look, we're not crazy about it. Like, man, we're at midnight. We're going to be tired just like they are, but we're going to do the best we can to move along and get it done and have a good and fair debate. And everyone gets to speak, Chris, everyone, Danielle, everyone gets to speak. All they have to do is request, I want to speak, fill out the card. You will get a chance to speak. We will not deny anybody the opportunity to speak. And so,
I can tell you from being down at the Capitol an awful lot, that's not always the case, Brett.
It is in my committee, sir. They will get to speak. And so it doesn't matter if we do it all in one day or in 10 days, you're still going to get to speak. No one's denied the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, Brett Guyman, Chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, thank you for joining us this morning. Good luck today. And we look forward to moving along in tandem with you and hopefully getting some of this stuff passed, because the citizens of our state certainly deserve it.
All right. Well, Chris, come see us on the 23rd and the 29th if you can, sir.
I sure will. God bless you. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.